Who will win, plastic or people? We're all too aware of the consequences of plastics in the oceans and on land. However, beyond the visible pollution of our once pristine habitats, plastics are having a grave impact on the climate too. The research calculates that plastics account for 3.8% of global greenhouse gas emissions across their life cycle. That's almost double the emissions of the aviation sector. If it were a country, the Plastic Kingdom would be the fifth highest emitter in the world. We produce 190 times more plastic than we did in 1950. If the demand for plastic continues to grow at its current rate of 4% a year, emissions from plastic production will reach 15% of global emissions by 2050. More than 99% of plastics are manufactured from petrochemicals, most commonly from petroleum and natural gas. These raw materials are refined to form ethylene, propylene, butene, and other basic plastic building blocks, before being transported to manufacturers. The production and transport of these resins require an awful lot of energy, and therefore fuel. Greenhouse gas emissions also occur during the refining process itself. The cracking of larger hydrocarbons from petrochemicals into smaller ones suitable for making plastic releases carbon dioxide and methane. 61% of total plastic greenhouse gas emissions come from the resin production and transport stage. A further 30% is emitted at the product manufacturing stage. The vast majority of these emissions come from the energy required to power the plants that turn raw plastic materials into the bottles, bin bags and bicycle helmets we use today. The remaining carbon footprint occurs when plastics are thrown away. Incineration releases all of the stored carbon in the plastic into the atmosphere, as well as air pollutants such as dioxins, furans, mercury and polychlorinated biphenyls, which are toxic and damaging to human health. As plastics take centuries to degrade, disposal in landfill makes only a small contribution to emissions in theory. However, as much as 40% of landfill waste is burnt in open skies, dramatically speeding up the release of otherwise locked-up carbon. If we are to combat climate breakdown, reductions in plastic emissions are clearly needed. In showing that transitioning to a zero-carbon energy system has the potential to reduce emissions from plastic by 51%, the study provides yet another reason to rapidly phase out fossil fuels. Beyond urgently required global decarbonization, we need to reduce our seemingly insatiable demand for carbon-based plastic. The highest quality plastics can be recycled many times, and nearly all plastic can be recycled to some extent, but only 18% was actually recycled worldwide in 2015. Although each recycling process requires a small amount of new plastic, we can greatly increase the life cycle of the material by efficiently reusing what we make. A more fundamental solution is to switch to making plastics from biodegradable sources such as wood, cornstarch, and sugarcane. Renewable power is essential to eliminate the climate impact of energy costs during production, transport and waste processing. However, a massive ramping up in the production of bioplastics, which currently make up less than 1% of total plastic production, would require vast swaths of agricultural land. With the population set to rise dramatically, increasingly coveted arable space may not be able to satisfy demand. We will need to reduce our demand for plastic. According to the study, simply reducing the annual growth in plastics demand from 4% to 2% could result in 60% lower emissions from the sector in 2050. Governments, corporations, and individuals must make research into alternatives a priority, and support alternatives to needless plastic waste. Were most people to carry a reusable water bottle, for example, we could eliminate the need for the estimated 20,000 single-use bottles bought each second around the world. As the recent study notes, only by combining reduction in demand, top-notch recycling, decarbonization of energy, and large-scale adoption of bioplastics can we tackle plastics' contribution to the climate crisis. But if we manage to do all of this, then we can cut plastics emissions to just 7% of current levels. Plastics need not be completely demonized as environmental scourges. Affordable, durable, and versatile, they bring a raft of societal benefits, and will undoubtedly serve an important role where replacements are unable to be found. But decades of unbridled use and a throwaway culture are having grave consequences that go far beyond the visible pollution of our land and water. It is essential that we drastically reduce our use of avoidable plastics, and eliminate the carbon footprint of the ones we need to use. Our relationship with plastic may be toxic, but it doesn't need to be forever. Environment for change. Time to act.